From the Alvin and Rosalie Sarachek studio, PBS Kansas presents Kansas Week.
The state has all your details, but are those details safe? A sobering report on cybersecurity after a ransomware attack shut down the state's courts. Plus, the Speaker of the House sets the agenda for what the House gets done this year, so what's on his mind? We find out. But first, a new tax plan from the governor and 3 conservative senators. Will it be a game changer this session? That's what we're talking about right now on Kansas Week. This is Kansas Week, and I'm your host, Pilar Pedraza. We all knew the governor wasn't a fan of the Republican leadership's tax plan, dubbing it a flat tax that only helped the wealthy. Still, her announcement of an alternate plan this last Monday was a surprise to many. But will it change anything?
It doesn't matter whose side it is. People want tax relief. That's what I've been talking to folks about all this fall. I was going out and getting petition signatures. They want some form of relief.
But can the two sides shaping up at the State House agree on what tax cuts to make? The governor wants to cut property taxes for up to $100,000 of home value, end all taxes on Social Security benefits, completely axe the state's grocery sales tax immediately, not next January 1st, while adding feminine hygiene products to the list, and increase the standard deduction for single Kansans from $3,500 to $5,000, and for couples from $8,000 to $10,000.
This is a bill I really believe can be passed. I believe it's a fair bill for all Kansans.
Senator Rubbles took a lot of flack for helping the governor's veto of a flat tax plan survive last year. Now he's joined the governor in proposing the new plan, along with Senators John Dahl and Dennis Pyle, 2 conservatives who've both run for governor as independents.
I don't know who talked first, but I think we're kind of going the same direction.
Do you feel like there's any room for compromise between your plan and her plan?
Not much. That's just her playing her petty politics that she's playing right now, and we can deal with that.
I think the goal is still to try to get down to that single rate so everybody is paying the same amount, and we can hopefully slowly start moving it down, ratcheting it down over time as we get more revenue that comes into the state.
And joining us today to delve deeper into the issues that came up this first week of the legislative session, not just taxes, Henry, we have State Representative Henry Helgerson, a Wichita Democrat, and a Wichita Republican, State Representative Nick Holheisel. Welcome both of you to the desk. As we start talking about these issues, I think the first question that anybody comes up with is, does this change anything? Is there a chance that either the governor's plan or leadership's plan will actually make its way through the House and the Senate? Who wants to take that one first?
I'll go ahead and go first. I've reviewed some of the governor's plan. I think there's a lot of things in there I can support. However, it does not touch income taxes. And I think that is something that us Republicans, we want to look at this year and have a discussion about a flat tax rate. The governor's plan, while again, there's property tax relief in there. We all agree on that. There's the Social Security relief for Social Security taxes. We agree on that. Phasing out the food sales tax even quicker. We all agree on that. But again, our position is we want to also have the discussion about income taxes. The governor's plan is void of that. Will she come to the table and negotiate with us on that? That's to be seen.
Well, I'd ask on the income taxes. The briefing that I got said that her plan included an increase in the basic withholding before you start paying income taxes. So to me, that does touch income taxes.
But that was in the Republican plan as well that we introduced last year and passed last year before it got vetoed with the flat tax, raising the standard deduction. But we also want to take that higher overall rate and bring that down as well. So is there any negotiating there, a 515, 525 on what that ending rate is? That's to be seen, but that is still our position.
Okay. Henry?
Yeah, there was a lot of politics the first week. You're going to have the governor's proposal out there. As you're saying, some segments are very popular and will pass without any problem. And the Republican, and I won't say Republican, the leadership plan sounds like it's doomed to fail. It sounds like both things are doomed to fail. And then you're going to have people like Nick and me that come together in tax committee or in other committees and say, hey, this is what works, this is the compromise, and this is what we're proposing. And you'll see segments of it appearing probably starting next week, and throughout the session trying to build a compromise with some people that have very strong positions right now.
And that really is true. What we get this first week is kind of different folks within the legislature, whether you're talking about leadership or individuals, kind of setting out, this is what I want, and then we've got the rest of the session to figure out the compromises, right?
Yeah,
that's how it's supposed to work.
You know, in the name of compromise, it does take two to tangle. You got to have a dance partner, so both sides do have to come to the table. Unfortunately, the governor during their State of the State drew a red line on the flat tax proposals. So we'll see if she's willing to negotiate on any of that.
As you remember in tax committee on Friday or on Thursday, I introduced an alternative tax reduction for income tax. Mm-hmm. That'll be one of many proposals that we'll be looking at. But I'll tell you right now on TV, we're going to have a discussion right up front next week on, let's put the partisanship behind us. Let's simply do what we've already agreed to, and that is move the sales tax to April 1st, which is the other bill that I proposed that everybody agrees it should happen.
Yeah.
And I'll join with you, and we'll put a bipartisan approach and say, let's just get this out of the way.
Yeah, no, I agree. The worst thing that can happen is we sit on this record surplus that we have and provide no tax relief this year to Kansans, all because of petty partisanship and politics. That would be the worst thing for our constituents in our state. So I'm hopeful that both sides, we can come together and provide actual tax relief to Kansans.
Agreed. We will.
All right, you heard it here first, folks. Let's see if it happens. Moving on, the governor's announcement may have put a dent in the Republican leadership's plans for the year, but it didn't change much. Before the session got fully underway, I sat down with Speaker Dan Hawkins to find out what he wants to get done this year.
Really, my major issue this year has always been taxes. Tax relief for our citizens is something that we need.
Much like the governor's push behind Medicaid expansion, the Speaker of the Kansas House's emphasis on tax cuts comes as no surprise. But he's working on a whole lot more.
Child care is going to be one of our more important items. Water continues to be an issue and always will. Cybersecurity is also very important. You know, we want to continue making sure that our roads are taken care of. You will see us continue to fully fund schools.
As he points out, many of these are issues that cross the political aisle, especially the cybersecurity concerns in the wake of the judicial system outage last year.
It's really just an issue that everybody can get behind and make sure that the state kind of drops the boundaries within the three branches and comes together and tries to get that solved.
As for the more controversial tax fight, he admits it'll be hard.
It may make getting to a veto override pretty difficult. But tax relief is still important and it's still something we're going to continue to work on.
And we know a lot of these issues really are bipartisan issues. Many of them, the same ones the governor said were priorities for her. So a good chance of getting those at least through fairly quickly, yes?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the speaker focused on information technology, internet security, stuff like that. That is a huge issue right now with what's happened with our court system. Yeah, he's outlined a lot of bipartisan positions that I think we'll be able to sell through pretty cleanly. Obviously, we'll have our fights over education, taxes, budget spending, but there are a lot of things that we can come together on and pass this session that will impact the lives of Kansans.
I agree with you, but there was a little bit of difference in the nuance. If you heard the speaker say it was in how we deal with the bureaucracy of childcare and how we get more slots. Yeah. The governor is clearly talking about using more and more funds and tax credits for additional slots. I think that's going to be a difference, and that's going to be a real issue when it comes down to it, is are we taking money from other programs, money from tax reductions, in order to start building up an additional bureaucracy of childcare?
Yeah, no, and I think the issue of childcare, it's not binary. It's going to take more than just money and slots. I think there is some regulatory reforms. I know we passed something last year. I believe the governor vetoed it for some regulatory reforms. We might look at some of that again this year, but things on like childcare, it's not a binary position of just throwing money at the problem and growing bureaucracy. As you say, we also have to focus on the regulatory end of it.
And certainly the regulatory end is what I heard most, because I've done a couple of deep dives into the child care shortage, the deserts that we have throughout the state, and what I heard time and time again from those trying to solve the problem and for those who are providing child care right now is it's the regulations. Sometimes they're contradictory, and there's just so many of them, and trying to keep up with all of them. That seems to be a concerted chorus from those who are on the ground with this issue right now.
It is, and I know at least on the House side that we plan on having that discussion again this year. I believe Senator Blasey is working on some stuff along with Representative Tori Murray Blue on the House side. That is a big issue for them to work on this session and see if we can get, again, another compromise with the governor's office on some kind of regulatory reform.
I'll throw something else out at you. Maybe we should look at trying to encourage parents to take care of their kids and give more paid leave. You know, whether or not you use it a model in the state employees, or whether or not you say that this is available to employers in a tax credit system. Maybe we should encourage that benefit to encourage parents to take care of infants, because infants, I think as I remember, require 2 staff people for each one. So we take a little bit of the burden off, but we also create a better, healthier family environment.
Yeah, and I think, you know, you see companies, businesses doing this already more and more without government interference, though, you know, without government mandates. It's just the way our economy is changing. And that's the power of the free markets working, you know, these companies making the changes on their own. But I agree with you, yeah. Anything we can do to encourage that, we should absolutely look at.
I can't think of a single parent who wouldn't take advantage of an opportunity like that to spend more time at home alone with those newborns.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, a ransomware attack on the Kansas judicial system back in October rocked the state. On Wednesday, state lawmakers and the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court discussed how Kansas can be more cyber secure. Kansas lawmakers are saying that all 3 branches of state government need to cooperate better to protect your information. Cakes explains.
Before dawn on October 12th, affiliates of a Russian-based ransomware group infiltrated the computer systems of the Kansas Judicial Branch. In doing so, they attacked one of our democratic institutions, a foundation of our democratic society.
Chief Justice of the Kansas Supreme Court Marla Luckert said at Wednesday's State of the Judiciary address, court officials are still working to get the court system completely up and running after last fall's ransomware attack from Russian-based hackers. She says although the system isn't completely restored, the last of the court's districts should have their e-filing systems fixed in the next couple of weeks. She told reporters after her speech she expects criminal charges to be filed.
We've cooperated with the FBI, with the federal CISA, and others, and given them the information, and of course any of that would be left to the U.S. Attorney and others, the local prosecutors to decide.
Luckert told the gathered lawmakers that all branches of government need to work together to ensure cybersecurity. Representative Barb Wassinger chairs the House Modernization Committee, which heard from federal and state IT security experts Wednesday. She said using national standards, the legislature's IT system security ranks just a 1.4 to 1.8 on a 5-point scale.
You can't fight a battle when you don't know who the enemy is. And so what the NIST standards help you do is identify your most vulnerable areas. And so we have tossed around, and this is kind of a dream, that we require everyone that works for the state of Kansas, every department, to get their NIST standards to 3 or above within the next year and a half or 2 years.
Democratic ranking member Jerry Stogsdill agrees that something needs to be done to protect state government from cyber attacks in the future, saying he's hopeful lawmakers can get something done about it this session.
I think this is new across the country. Hackers and foreign entities and so on are getting much more sophisticated about that. And as that happens, we have to keep up with that. And I think the state is committed to doing just exactly that.
The Modernization Committee also heard from the Federal Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, who Wassinger says they want to work more closely with throughout the session. In the State House, Nick Nelson, Cake News on your side.
And a couple other key points from the Chief Justice's speech. She said that when they discovered the hack, the ransomware hack, they found out that whoever was doing the hack had access to their computer system for over 300 days. And they refused to pay the ransom. So a couple of issues there, but the number that just floored me as I was sitting in the chamber and I heard her say that was they had access for 300 days plus by the time we found out about it. And that the only solution is prevention, because if they can be in there for that long without us knowing,
Yeah.
Trying to go back and make all that up is impossible. Yeah.
Got anything?
Well, it's probably not. It's not going to be a one-time expenditure. It's going to be a regular expenditure and a regular updates, and an oversight that we have not provided in the past to make sure that those things get done. And that's probably a change that's going to occur not only in our government, but in many of the other institutions around. The regents, the community colleges, the hospitals. We'll probably have to be looking all around.
Yeah, this is something private industry is facing as well. These ransomware attacks. I am glad to hear that we did not pay the ransom. I appreciate not sending any more taxpayer dollars over to Russia. But at the end of the day, we can file criminal charges, as they said, against this group. But again, they're based in Russia, so our jurisdictional reach is not into Russia. It's going to take these countries cracking down on it from within. I have a feeling some of these countries, we get attacks from North Korea as well. These are encouraged by those countries, our foreign adversaries. So it's an unfortunate situation. The best we can say, is if you get a suspicious email, don't click on the link. I have a feeling this is only going to get worse with the proliferance of AI these days, AI technology. But just everybody needs to be aware that there's people out there attacking our systems all day, every day, trying to get in.
Yeah, I mean, I've read estimates that there are like hundreds of attacks per minute on some businesses.
Yeah,
I know certainly on election offices.
Yeah, and even our electrical grid. I've had conversations with some of our utilities, and that's kind of one of the questions I ask. How many attacks a day do you guys get? And the number is staggering. Luckily, they're able to repel those attacks, but it just takes that one time.
And you're talking about the cost and that this is going to be an ongoing issue. We all are familiar with system updates from our cell phones, and it's for the same reason. It's to close those back doors, and it's just an ever-evolving situation. How do you, as a legislator trying to figure out the budget, figure out how much to put toward that?
You don't. You best guess. And then you're going to hire a consultant, and the consultant's going to give you the best information, but then it's going to be outdated in 6 months or a year. So it's going to be continual oversight that'll be necessary.
Yeah, I agree. It's just, that's the world we live in these days.
And I know I was sitting in that Legislative Modernization Committee hearing with Representative Wassinger and Stogstill, and that's one of the things they're talking about, is that this may be one of those times when they need one position that oversees all three branches of the government in order to keep everybody on the same page, like one IT officer that oversees all of them.
Not necessarily a bad idea. Yeah. So another conversation we can have about bureaucracy and
Although I'll go back,
bureaucracy, but
I'll go back to we've had some experiences where we had one person involved and they made a bad decision because we didn't have any checks and balances, and we ended up with a $10 million server in the basement of the docking office building for umpteen years because it was outdated when we got it.
Okay,
so
something to keep in mind.
Can always talk about an oversight committee for the IT officer.
Yeah. All right. Well, for the 5th year in a row, lawmakers are trying to make it illegal to discriminate against someone based on their hairstyle. It's called the Crown Act and protects hairstyles designed to protect African American hair or hairstyles with religious significance, like Native American men wearing long hair.
And she looked at me with my relaxed hair and said, "Mommy, I want hair like yours. I want princess hair." And that hair does not grow out of my head.
From a growing lack of self-confidence in the bodies they were born with to being forced to meet school and work dress codes.
It wasn't until I graduated from college and ventured into the professional world that I felt this overburdened sense to conform to Western standards as it related to my hair. And when that is at conflict of who you are as a person and how you were raised, it was very troubling.
They also shared stories of Indigenous boys forced to cut their long hair, African American kids forced to cut off locks and twists in order to participate in school activities or keep jobs. And they pointed to scientific studies showing American women who use chemical relaxers are twice as likely to get uterine cancer as those who don't. And something African American girls began doing as young as 11 or 12 years of age.
86% of children between the ages of 11 and 12 have experienced hair discrimination.
Senator Oletha Faust-Godot first introduced the Crown Act in 2020 and has repeated it every session since.
I am hopeful this year.
She says each time it's gotten a bit further through the legislative process and the questions and concerns have changed as those who testify help teach lawmakers about the problem.
It's ironic that we would have this hearing just before the Dr. Martin Luther King program here today at the state capitol. But it's sad for me that we are still fighting discrimination issues this many years later.
And it's interesting as I've sat through, because I've been following this ever since Senator Faust-Godot introduced the first one back in 2020. And it's interesting as I've gone to hearing after hearing after hearing in the House and the Senate side that the questions have slowly evolved and changed. Kind of, I think, indicating a growing understanding of the issue, perhaps.
Yeah, I think some of the recent headlines that have happened here in Kansas have helped push that education along. Senator Faust-Godot has done a very good job as well educating folks on this issue. I look forward to it coming to the House for a vote. Obviously, discrimination of any kind is wrong, so I'm eagerly anticipating this bill making its way over.
I look forward to it also. I am not familiar with it as much, but look forward to the discussion.
Yep. Yeah. The one small issue I had on it was employer safety issues, but I've talked to some folks, and I think my reluctance has been eased on this. So.
Yeah, that's the big question I remember hearing at the beginning, and now it's just kind of and this doesn't violate OSHA, right?
Yeah.
Nope. Okay,
yeah.
Good.
Yep.
So, moving on, the fentanyl crisis has gotten so bad we can no longer prosecute our way out of it. We must now educate our way out of it. That was the message the head of the KBI had for the Kansas Board of Education this week. We go back to CAKE's Nick Nelson for an explanation.
Health officials say that fentanyl is now the leading cause of death for Kansans between the ages of 18 and 45. Jennifer Ebert, a mom who lost her son to a fentanyl poisoning, has become a community health educator. She told the board 7 out of 10 pills contaminated with fentanyl are now proving deadly, and shared stories of Kansans who've experienced the death of loved ones from fentanyl poisonings like she has.
I had no idea that was something to visit with my kids about. I have 4 children, and we did not talk about that. We talked about everything else, but never did I tell my kids one pill could end your life in a matter of minutes.
KBI Director Tony Mativi joined Ebert. He says the crisis has reached the point that parents need to have honest conversations about the drug with their kids.
We in law enforcement are devoting tremendous effort to targeting our enforcement against fentanyl distribution, but we will never be able to enforce our way out of this problem. We have to educate, we have to raise public awareness, we have to do everything that we can do to decrease the demand for this drug.
Mativi says as fentanyl death in Kansas continues to rise, the crisis is hitting close to home for the KBI.
We have a very senior, very experienced KBI drug agent who lost his 18-year-old son. And that family they are out there talking about this. They want us out there talking about it. They want people to know that if you think this can't happen to you, or if you think this can't happen to your family or your kid, you're just wrong.
At the State House, Nick Nelson, Cake News on your side.
And we know we had some changes in state law last year because of the fentanyl crisis, legalizing the possession of Narcan, things like that. Fentanyl test strips, I think, was part of it. Further stuff coming along?
Yeah, so I do have a piece of legislation working on this year called the Good Samaritan Law. Just provides immunity for individuals from possession of drugs or drug paraphernalia. If there's an overdose on the scene, they're able to call emergency response. They provide life-saving care to the individual ODing, and also education. I think we're gonna have the conversation about how do we fund some educational pieces. I think fentanyl is this poison that's running through our streets right now is a huge issue. We're gonna try everything we can on the state level to combat it. But at the same time, I mean, it's flooding in from our ports, it's flooding in from our southern border, it's flooding in from China, and we need to start holding these bad actors accountable for this poison inflowing into our communities.
And we must encourage parents and family members to have these conversations with kids.
Absolutely. I mean, just, if you look, they have the picture online of a penny and then just a little tiny speck of fentanyl in it, and that's all it takes to kill you. And it can be in anything these days. Education is a huge piece. Cracking down on the distributors, the drug dealers out there that are pumping this into our communities as well. But again, we have to start holding these countries where this is coming in accountable as well.
Great.
So.
Yeah, I know one of the parents who was at that meeting that was talking with the state school board, she's, we heard her say in there, I didn't know to tell my kids what a pill can kill. So parents are still just kind of learning about this. But the other thing, she has since become a fentanyl educator. And she says, when kids know, they stay away from it. Mm-hmm. The thing is they think that it's harmless right now.
Yeah, and educate, I mean, possibly bringing back the DARE program and gearing it towards fentanyl. And, when I was younger, it was mainly marijuana and crack cocaine. Now we can shift it more towards fentanyl and having that getting into schools earlier, letting kids know at an earlier age that this can kill.
All right. We're going to have to let that be the last word. We are out of time. Thank you so much, Nick and Henry, for joining us. We'd also like to thank our news sponsors, the Wichita Eagle, KSN News, and Cake News, for sharing their materials with us. We hope you've enjoyed our discussion. What do you think we should talk about next? Well, drop us a line at kansasweek@kpts.org. For now, stay safe and have a great week.